Welcome to Mastering Life's Adventures, an educational podcast about tapping into your true self, the soul, the substance of your life, to discover what life's ups and downs are really about, and how to have a greater sense of purpose, peace, joy, and fulfillment. I am Dr. Judith Holder, your host, coach, psychologist, fellow seeker who enjoys diving into the connections between spirituality, psychology, wellness, and your everyday life's adventures. All preparing and polishing you like the facets of a magnificent diamond to be your best self. If you're craving more from your life, you are in the right place. Come, let's journey together and transforming what you know into who you really are. Mastering Life's Adventures begins now.
Hi, I'm back with a guest that I think this conversation will really fascinate you. And Vera's going to introduce herself, and then we're going to dive right into our focus for today. Can following our feelings guide the soul? And we know a lot about feelings, and people have different views about feelings, and whether they're scared or they approach them or they want to just ignore them in any way they can. But the conversation and our discussion is about, can following our feelings guide the soul? Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. My name is Vera Helleman from the Netherlands. I'm an emotion expert, a non-duality teacher, and I view the world and our inner and our outer world through an energetic logic perspective.
That is going to be fascinating as we're looking at feelings and how it may guide us or it doesn't guide us. What are your thoughts about that?
Our feelings? Feelings are always my guidance. It is my emotional compass and always been something that I could rely on. And along the way, you feel sometimes that your mind can trap you, that you sometimes don't even know if you can trust your own thoughts. Feelings bring that to the surface. Understanding emotions, feelings, intuition helps you to stay on your highway, what we call the A1. That's the biggest highway in the Netherlands. That is, for me, what emotions, feelings, our feeling equipment does for us.
So tell us a little bit about how you became you.
I was a very shy child. I didn't speak for years, way after my adolescence. When I was outside the door, I did speak a little when I was home, but never outside. So I always observed. I couldn't join conversations. I was always outside of the circle, watching people. I remember watching from my window, imagining, what are they thinking? What are they feeling? It had my interest, scratched my soul. I think I was around 3 years old, and I went outside with my mother, which we did regularly. I always scanned her energy, I perceived the world through energy. I scanned her energy, and she was fine. I had, by the way, an autistic father. I think he might have played a role in it too, because we had a very strong connection. My father wasn't a nice man because he didn't know how to be nice. He was very straight and short and like autism. So I had to tune in into his energy to feel that he meant well and he loved me. Feeling was the only thing I could rely on. Well, I was with my mother. We went outside and I scanned her energy. She was fine. Then we bumped into the neighbor and she were communicating with each other. And suddenly, out of the blue, they went from totally fine to totally disturbed. And I really thought, what is going on?
Didn't they have an argument?
They didn't have an argument. I remembered there was sorrow in the face of the neighbor. So I think they discussed something I couldn't understand at that age, but I observed it changed in their energy, and that disturbed me because it seemed they did that on purpose without even knowing it. That was so fascinating. That really drove the rest of my life. Why people making themselves unhappy? Why are they doing that? Because it seemed they were doing something. And that was a very long journey, but I discovered the bits of pieces of it.
It's interesting because at a young age, there was a sensitivity that you innately had. That sensitivity is the innate quality of the soul. The soul is very sensitive. and impressionable, but we don't realize it. We don't connect to it. We actually sometimes are afraid of it, because especially if the soul is feeling uncomfortable because it's seeing this energetic energy, because I think the universe works in energy levels. And so when we feel something, we don't always know how to interpret it. The same with the soul. The soul doesn't know how to interpret it, other than it's harsh, or it's abrasive, or it's uncomfortable type of thing. And so as a young age, you were able to kind of pick up, because it's interesting. You said that I didn't really verbalize much until later in life. I observed more. And that observation was a gift to you, it sounds like, so that you could begin to distinguish between what's happening, what's going on at this level of the emotions.
Yes, what a nice addition. When I divide the human into 4 parts, body, mind, feelings, and consciousness, we can develop one or more better than the other. And I think my consciousness and feelings were very, huge developed, but body and mind still was developing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and still the body is something I need to work on.
Mm-hmm.
It was, yes. When speaking of soul, I always feel I am the soul having a human, not the other way around.
That's correct.
Yes.
And with that awareness, a lot of people believe it's the other way around.
I can imagine.
That they're human, similar to you. I do believe we're here placed upon earth in order to have certain experiences, the soul to have certain experiences, to grow, evolve, and to be able to start to distinguish between the higher pathway of the soul and what is kind of a lower pathway of the human. And can you make a distinction between that? Because the soul wants to evolve.
Interesting. I see the development of the human, but for me, human is of service to the soul. There's dividedness and separation in the world, and me, and distinguishing from others. But actually, I see ourselves more like a bee crowd. And so there was a point I realized it's not all about me. I'm always in service. And I realized that during my life, everything that I experienced was always because of a higher purpose that my soul wanted to use my human for.
The human, and also what I call the ego persona. The ego part is the subservient. The soul should be in the master bedroom, not the ego. But the ego you can't do away with it. The human needs to be under the auspices of the soul, and the soul's rising to understand its purpose and meaning, and to be able to fulfill that holy purpose is kind of how I look at it through the lens of soul evolution.
Yes, I feel. That's very nice. And when we talk about ego persona, a lot of people think that is something wrong. They need to get rid of, ascend, or rise above. But when you actually integrate that part of you and realize that is of service to the soul, and see that everything experienced and raised by, I, for example, have an autistic wiring. And I'm glad because that made it possible to see detailed structures that I needed to distinguish the things in the feeling field.
Tell me more about that. When you're saying the autistic wiring and how it allows you to see the details and the structuring or the scaffolding of things. Just clarity for the listener.
Yeah, so what I noticed with neurotypical human is that they overview things. They can overview, but don't go so deep. And what I see with the autistic wiring is that there's a hyper focus on one subject that interests this human, and then they go very deep in it and see all the structures that belongs to that subject. But this is how I deciphered all these emotional traits.
This is the autistic wiring allows the person to delve into a deeper awareness or understanding about something that maybe the person who does not have that type of wiring, or we all have different types of wiring, that's all of
and needed for the RB crowd.
Right. Right. And it's needed for just the living of life. But that allows you to be able to dig a little bit deeper because your father gave you a gift, is what I heard. And that gift was the autistic wiring that allows you to be able to see things from a different perspective than the average person.
Exactly. Yes. Those are the pioneers. And I see all these people with huge qualities and pitfalls. Our feeling equipment guides us to understand ourselves, our traits, and our pitfalls, and help us to balance that all so that we can use the traits and avoid the traps. So for me, emotions are a way of balancing our human self with the soul self, but also stay in balance with ourselves, because these are energetic forces that go out and in like the breath of life. For example, joy wants to go out. But for example, emotion group shame, that is very contracting. It wants to isolate things and reframe and label things. There are other forces that are continuously breathing out and breathing in and guide us through life on our journey, help us grow, evolve, held back, remain balanced, stay healthy, because it's all about energy. And I like what you say about that it belongs to the soul, because it's an energetic part. It is all correlated. So we can say the soul belongs to the feelings. We can distinguish into 4 parts. This energetic logic is everywhere. For me, emotions were an entrance to teach about energy and the logic of energy.
Let's take the emotion of anger, for example. How does that look from your perspective?
For me, anger is an energy. It's actually difficult to explain, but it belongs to the force of motion. I distinguish them in 4 forces. This belongs to the force of motion, which sets us in action with fear. Fear and anger belong to each other. They're two sides of a coin. Mm-hmm. And when, for example, we are angry, it is actually a counter reaction of us being that we went too far away from our center. So we go out, or be distracted, and our energy leaves our center. Then we get anger and we take it back and root in our center, then gather all this energy and use it to do something. It's also the breath between going out and going in.
Interesting. Thoughts came to mind. I can pull them together. You're talking about the energetic energy of anger and how it does go out in a forceful way. And then you're saying you can pull it back to move it to another level. In the soul evolution aspect of it, anger is a very strong emotion, which really relates to some level of disobedience or rebellion against oneself or against someone else that takes place. And so that, and in that perspective, it is anger. It needs mastery. And part of that mastery is being able to first be aware that you're angry about something. 2, are you inflicted upon someone else? Or are you inflicted upon yourself? Then how do I transmute this energy so it doesn't trigger me? So people around me are not always getting me angry, because you can have something that is perpetually, you're always angry. No, responsibility on a soul level to transmute it, because the soul doesn't know how to deal with that emotion. It wants you to rearrange this in a way that allows that energy to flow out with peace, gratitude, and harmony, and some of these other emotions or feelings that allows the soul to feel a little bit lifted, as opposed to anger, which is dense and can weigh down the soul and not be helpful.
Yes, interesting. From my perspective, it is a dense energy, and shame, guilt are even more denser. Fear also, by the way. But for me, I've divided 8 emotion groups, and each emotion group contains positive as well as negative emotions. And when we follow the pitfalls of each correlated life theme, then we fall down the ladder of that emotion group, but we can also climb the ladder and experience, for example, anger as passion and being centered or positive. So when we talk about anger, what was happening before. So when we are angry with someone, it might be because of shame about rights and wrongs, a sense of self. But for example, with autistic people who have issues with anger, they are so sensitive, confused by the surroundings that their energy goes all the way and don't know what to happen. Anger comes to take it all back. That's a different reaction. In both cases, for example, in this case, the latter example, that we need angry to restore our balance. But coming from shame, which also is a containing energy, as angry is, then actually we are holding on to a negative thought, pointing at someone else as a perpetrator, and then angry is actually a way down. So it adds the judgment that triggered us. We always look at how they work together. What was the purpose of the emotions? What did it want to tell you? When we add consciousness, all emotions help align, uplift the soul.
I agree. I don't want to get into whether it's bad or good, but I'm more focusing around what happens for the soul energetically when this, and because some individuals can be in a perpetual state of always being angry.
Oh, yes.
And so, that is hindering the soul, creating in the soul. It's like putting the soul in prison. When you're talking about consciousness, as you're raising your consciousness, you'll be aware that in the soul evolution, you don't have to perpetually have anger to balance something. In soul evolution, is actually allows you as an indicator to saying, okay, this is something that is triggering me in some way, a strong emotion or feeling, and I need to see the message behind this. From a soul perspective, how do I transform or transcend that to raise myself energetically, to have a greater degree of sensitivity? Anger in soul evolution pulls the soul down, and where you want to kind of figure out how do I evolve it, I'll evolve myself, evolve through that, because it has its purpose. But to always, throughout your entire life, have periods of being angry all the time is saying that, am I mastering what I need to master? Or am I still being triggered by certain people, situations, events? Ultimately, we're trying to change our wiring to be at a higher, more spiritual level, which was my focus in helping people to do these conversations to say, there's many different ways to roam. What do you want your pathway to be to the center of that circle?
Yes. I'm wondering, listening to you, I think it's fascinating, by the way. It is really nice that we go deeper than alone. And so I'm wondering, do you think that the soul have experienced the feelings and the emotion, or the human does? Because I'm with you with that it's holding the soul back, but when they are one, it is the soul that wants to shine through the human. What I saw with my mother and the neighbor is they were making themselves unhappy. And for example, when someone is continuously angry, it puts a dark blanket over the human, which the soul cannot shine through. It is always the case that people aren't aware of how they are doing that. Because no one wants to feel angry all the time, or sad, or depressed, or we don't do this on purpose, but it is something, a misconception is what it is, what is holding, oh, I'm very sorry, what is holding all these dense emotions. And that is what we can decipher, so we can become more transparent and not triggered, so the soul can shine through the human. I'm curious about how if a soul can evolve, or that the soul is maybe already totally complete whole and doesn't need change.
The soul is here to have certain experiences for it to continue to grow. And that soul awareness, which is the substance of your life, the soul is the substance of your life, of who you are. And it's not the personality, it's not the body. It's the raising in consciousness of awareness about what is it. I keep on having this pattern happening to me. Like I just did a podcast episode on repeating patterns. We keep on having these patterns, keep happening. What's up? Either we're going to say, well, it's just the way it is, or we're going to say, if this pattern keeps on happening, there's something my soul is trying to learn. What is it that you're trying to teach me? And this is where I talk about the I am presence, the Christ self, the Atman, or in Buddhic traditions, you have to be able to say, show me, guide me, help me see what I need to see. Through that process, you get inspiration. You get a kind of a nudge to say intuitively, oh, this is why this person's triggering me. Now what I want to do about it. Now that I have that awareness, each day is a new day of opportunity to continue to grow and learn and not be like Groundhog's Day, that movie, which again and again and again until you get to see, oh, that is happening in a way.
I'm totally with you. And I think we are very much focused on exactly the same thing. And that is really freeing ourselves. But I hear that there is a core understanding that is different between in you and me. My core understanding or my core belief is that we aren't here to learn as a soul. And for me, this whole dualistic world is the most profound creation that consciousness, or whatever we call it, gave us. And it very much feels to me that we are here voluntarily to experience this world in which we can see, which we can smell and hear sounds and music and see colors, and experiencing all these other pieces of the self, which is called Judith and Vera, having a conversation that is far more interesting than being one. I really believe a human can evolve to be more transparent, to shine, to let the soul shine through it. In the end, there is no distinction. The same, and they will intertwine in one moment, and then we see, oh wow, it wasn't me having a soul, it wasn't also me having a human. We are one and the same. Wow.
I think the soul is here, the human is a vehicle for the soul. When we pass, but this body passes dust to dust, the soul continues to evolve and move on. And so it moves on to either higher or lower, like Dante's Inferno, 33 levels of heaven or 33 levels of hell, based upon completions in your life.
Yes, I understand you. Interesting.
So we're talking about feelings, and it's been a nice discussion to go in different directions because it does come back to how it guides the soul, or it doesn't guide the soul. There's something more that guides the soul in this. And one of the things we've been talking about is anger, for example. What that is and levels in which the soul is like, for the soul level, anger is a very strong emotion and it gets it off its course because it means that we can then, if we're using that negative energy, I'll call it that way, going out, as you were talking about, then it's hurting sometimes people. That's why we get into violence, mental, emotional, physical violence that takes place on the extreme levels. At another level, you can have anger, which we don't think about, is those frustrations and irritabilities that take place at the smaller level that happen. And that if a soul can understand the irritability and frustrations at that level, then you don't have to get to a level of being so angry and annoyed, but you can start to gain mastery over those irritations and frustrations. It allows you to be more effective and more kind of centered in the soul's awareness of, I'm here to evolve, I'm here to grow. Taking in all the senses, enjoying all of life, but not thinking that this is the end all and be all in this physical world and through the soul path.
Exactly. Sometimes we need anger. For example, yes, we do. I see anger as a productive force, but it's not meant to hurt people. When we understand the other person is an extension of you, like a shattered mirror, sometimes, for example, I will generalize a typical person, which is always giving in, saying yes, moving along, bowing to everyone. That is not healthy because you cannot stand for what you have to do in this world. So at a certain point, it's like a rubber band that is giving in, giving in, giving in. And sometimes at a certain point, this rubber band pulls back with anger. Nah, listen to me. I need to get my broom and wipe it all over the table. We need to go in that direction. when we understand it is me who gave in, who gave away all my energy, and it is me who needed to anger to center because I need to stand as one centered individual and do something, not against someone else, not against the principle, not against whatever, but for something. Then anger evolves to passion and determination and the ability to act when no one else does because they non-accept anger.
I love what you're saying about mirror. Everything that comes our way is a mirror of ourselves and what we can work on and improve.
Totally.
Sometimes people think it's you that did it to me. This was coming to you for a reason, for you to learn something. My question as you were talking, is there a difference between anger and passion? Can you have passion without anger?
You cannot have passion with non-acceptance on anger, because when we non-accept the innate force of from which anger originates from, it is like you hide it in a box of Pandora. So, for example, sometimes a client came to me at the stage and she said, I have so much ideas and I want to do so much and I don't know why it doesn't happen. And I asked her, do you ever get mad? Well, no. What do you think of anger? Obviously, I hate it. That's why. So it is also a force inside of yourself that you can get the moving energy from that really changes things. So the anger and passion are two different kinds of energies. Passion has a higher frequency, but it comes from the same group, the same correlated life theme, the same innate power.
That's interesting because what I see is that innate power can be in alignment with your soul growth, the passion of things. But if misused, it could be a misused power through anger. Either way, you have to learn to use your passion. I don't need anger to have passion.
No, you don't need anger, but you need to accept that force.
Well, we can accept it. We don't have to act on it. We can seeing that this person is really irking me, really angry about this. But I think with the soul evolution aspect, awareness breeds for you to make choice. Whether that choice to be one of anger or mastery over that emotion or feeling.
Totally. When we are at the bottom of anger, we don't have a choice. It's taken over us. And that is what is happening with what we call emotions. They take over us because there's no consciousness anymore that can do something with it. So I see there are 8 emotion groups, like 8 rubber bands. When we are out of alignment with ourselves, these forces are like rubber bands, and this hurts. So emotions like anger, sadness, depression, guilt, that means that we left ourselves, we left the alignment with ourselves. And that is why they hurt, because they want to alert us. Open your eyes. You need to come into alignment with yourself again. This is the message. It is this emotional force in balance, and that means something.
I can see that, yes, the way you said that, because it is as if we get further away from our true self. Or if you want to call it a rubber band or getting hijacked, yes, with some color, whatever you want to call it. The more you get away from yourself, you are now in a different forest.
Exactly, lost in the forest.
Lost in the forest. And now you need a guidance or compass to help you move back to the core of the centeredness of who you are. That's where the soul wants mastery, in alignment with our highest purpose and direction in one's life, whatever that might be. And also tied into the awareness that you're here for a greater purpose. You know, you're not just here to experience all these types of emotions or feelings or whatever, but they're here as guideposts to help you to understand where you are along your journey, along you on your path. And you can always go off the path. You can come back to the path too, with awareness.
Yes, for me, emotions are the lifelines the soul throws to us humans, because it is the the language of energy that emotion speaks. It is a language of the soul that speaks through emotions to us. And that is actually mathematics. It's energetic logic that when you leave your center, this rubber band or whatever is hurting you, that is the soul that says, this is my language. I need to pull you back. I need to pull you back. So this is why I think it's the other way around.
Tell us more about, is there a distinction between emotions and feelings and the relationship to the human consciousness or human existence and the soul?
When we look at our brain, the neocortex helps us distinguish a me from another. We can isolate a me, imagine the future, and think about it. It's very interesting. So the human part actually is the thinking part. And when we look at emotion, they give feedback on everything that we think. Believe. I'm sorry, because thinking and believing is something else. Only from the moment an idea comes up and we put value in it, it becomes a belief. When the belief doesn't serve the soul, if it is unaligned, emotions are feedbacking on this belief. Feelings are energetic sensations we experience when we meet another energy. For example, when two persons meet each other, and then their energy field is intertwining, also with us, by the way. So it's intertwining, and then you become a new energy. But when this energy isn't nice for you, it can be a nice energy for someone else, then you also get feelings, for example, of doesn't feel nice, doesn't feel suited, a little bit strange. It's when it is a very strong energy that is very not good for us, then the feedback is stronger. In our experience, we don't distinguish them. But where they answer to is different. In my teachings, I don't use the difference between feeling and emotions because the energetic language is the same, but where it comes from is different. And it also counts for intuition and also for instinct. We can also
How does that come from different spaces?
The feeling equipment, which we can perceive. This feeling equipment also gets information from the mind. We call it an emotion. It gives feedback on the beliefs, but also from the feeling from the soul. Then it is a feeling, but it can also get information from consciousness itself. Then it becomes intuition. And we receive it through feeling. Intuition comes from consciousness, but it can also come from the body. For example, when you're standing on the top of a flat building and you look down, you feel fear. That is an instinctive emotion. That's instinct. So it all feels to us as emotion, but it communicates from different places.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. Emotions, from a spiritual standpoint, usually come and go. It can be strong and sad, mad, angry, upset. They are like daylight, clouds coming in, clouds going out. The interesting aspect is that feelings are something in which the soul is trying to always be in attune to. And because feelings help for creation, co-creation, with your higher self. If you're feeling, that joy or happiness, you're a co-creator then to that joy and happiness, just as you can be a co-creator to the negative feelings as well. And so ultimately, we're trying to learn in mastery over how we want to evolve ourselves. And through that evolution, ascend. Paul said, I ascend daily. We're ascending daily to a higher consciousness, awareness, a vibration of understanding. As you're moving up the mountain, you can see more things. When you get to the top, you can see a lot more and be aware of my reactions. I can see this creates this for me. Or another analogy I use is that there's 3 ways that we move through life. One way can be through a skateboard. And that means we're just guiding through life and we're just moving and we're just observing and we're seeing things and we're not being off that skateboard. Another way that we move through life is a springboard, like a trampoline. We can bounce, see higher, have a greater awareness, use that information to live life in a particular way. or we can float through life, being in the water or an ocean or a pond and just floating on top and just observing, being aware and experiencing whatever it may be. And what you're moving towards is that we can be all those three things, and each one has its appropriate place, and each one can be able to help us in a particular way for us to continue to, what I talk about in my language is to continue to evolve and grow and move forward and know that you're gaining greater mastery over oneself and one's emotions and not having them drive you, but you're kind of becoming in the driver's seat.
Exactly. For me, what you are referring to is staying vigilant, stay conscious, and be with the feeling so they will leave. Actually, there's a research that says they will not stay longer than 90 seconds if you don't ruminate. For me, that is basic. When you want to work with emotions, feelings, intuition, there needs to be consciousness, willing to experience feelings and let them flow through you. Otherwise, when you are taken over, want to get rid of them, suppress them, or act out on, then you aren't in a position that you can listen to what they want to say.
Well, that would be like being on the skateboard.
Yeah.
That's you're skating, you're allowing the emotion or the feelings or whatever go by you, but it's not sticking to you. You know? And
Yes,
that's where the rumination can come in. We got off that skateboard with certain experiences and then living one's life.
Exactly. But we cannot choose to come off that skateboard when we aren't conscious. It is grace. The moment you are aware of it, you can choose, but not before.
That's right. And that's what the process of soul evolution is about. It's helping more alert, aware, and attuned.
Nice.
Attuned. So you began to make conscious and intentional choices that allows you to say, I got this time. I didn't slip on that banana peel. I didn't slip on it. I put it in its place and I continue to evolve and grow. This is what the soul wants us to do. Because all are human and we'll slip on banana peels again and again. And sometimes we've got to say, I see a banana peel. I'm not stepping on it this time.
Yes.
That allows us
to pick it up. I'm going to pick it up, observe and inquire it. Why did I get there?
Exactly. We've been talking about this and diving more into your awareness about emotions and feelings in the body and consciousness. Is there a word or a phrase that you want to leave with the seeker or listeners?
I recently had a conversation with a man, and what shocked me about that, and that is something that suits for now to say, I guess. What shocked me, he was convinced that men didn't feel. He wasn't willing to face whatever, but he seems very unhappy, coping as good as he was able to. But the willingness really to be in this place of I'm willing to feel, to look inside, really look at the core of my pain is halfway the solution. The moment you realize why something hurts, and hurt has everything to do with emotions, because hurt is an emotion, is the moment that you understand why it hurts, you meet your true self, because that is hurting. And the moment you realize it, you are on the threshold of choosing another direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is what comes into my mind to share.
Well, that's a great awareness, because a lot of people don't want to feel. And
exactly.
Because it is painful or because they don't know what to do with it. You cut off part of yourself. To have a greater awareness of truly who you are at the feeling level, it is the soul. The soul wants that sensitivity, that energetic awareness, and wants you to master through that. How much are you willing to go deep?
Actually, I think that is what is making this society at this moment in this balance. We didn't integrate our feelings, or haven't integrated yet.
Yeah, there's the flame of hope. We can do it, but we have to be willing to look at aspects of ourselves that some people just say, no, I don't want to.
Yes, I will go along the way we did, but you will know for sure you will get what you always got.
Yes. Well, this has been a delightful conversation, Vera, and I appreciate having the conversation with you. And the beautiful thing is we can have different perspectives and united perspectives, but, it ultimately is for the listeners and the seekers to be able to say, what do I think? And how do I want to advance in my own growth and advancement at this point in my life? Is there a way they can contact you?
Yes, you can visit my website. That is emotioncodex.com. And there you find everything about emotions, who I am, what I offer, and how I can guide you and all that.
Okay, wonderful. Seekers, stay tuned. I would like to invite Vera back for part 2 and continue this deep dive series. Stay tuned for the next one. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining me for this episode on Mastering Life's Adventures, being your best self through soul evolution. If you have enjoyed what you've heard today, I would be delighted if you would share this episode with others, leave a thumbs up, and subscribe to my Mastering Life's Adventures podcast. Look forward to your joining the next episode. Please leave any comments or suggestions you might have below. Bye for now.